She walked into Cincinnati as the hottest player on tour. She walked out with another top 10 scalp, and the Filipino crowd in absolute chaos. Amanda Anisimova had never faced her before. She had heard about the Eala effect, the flags, the chants, the stadiums that feel like Manila, but nothing could have prepared the world number 10 for what she walked into in Ohio. In just 68 minutes, the Filipina sensation dismantled one of the most dangerous players on tour, moving within one win of the Cincinnati Open quarterfinals. The revenge tour has become a defining feature of her career. 7 straight victories over players who had previously beaten her, and Anisimova was just the latest name to fall. Is there anyone who can stop Alex Eala right now? She had heard about the flags, she had heard about the chants, but nothing could have prepared Amanda Anisimova for what she was about to walk into. I haven't played her before. She's been having such an incredible season, an incredible year. Very great player with a lot of fans, so I'm really looking forward to that. The world number 10's pre-match comments were gracious. She praised the Filipina sensation's remarkable rise and acknowledged the massive crowd she was about to face. But there was also a warning in her words, a determination to thrive on the energy rather than be overwhelmed by it. She has a great fan base, and it looks like an incredible atmosphere every time she steps out to play a match. I'm really looking forward to it. Anisimova, the world number 10, had been warned. She knew the flags would be out. She knew the chants would be deafening. But nothing could have prepared Amanda Anisimova for the storm that awaited her in Cincinnati. And by the time the final point was played, the American had become the latest victim of the Eala effect. From the very first point, Eala made it clear that she was not intimidated by the world no. 10's reputation. The 21-year-old Filipina had been playing the best tennis of her career, and she wasn't about to stop now. Her clean ball striking, relentless consistency, and ability to dictate play from the baseline left Anisimova with no answers. The match was over in just 68 minutes. The 6-3, 6-2 scoreline was a statement. Not just of victory, but of the transformation that had taken place in the 2 years since Eala was struggling through Grand Slam qualifiers. She had now beaten 8 consecutive opponents who had previously defeated her. A streak that had become the defining feature of her revenge tour. A host of names had fallen before her in recent weeks. Zheng Qinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Elina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, Jessica Pegula, Alicia Parks, Elena Gabriela Ruse, and now Amanda Anisimova. The victory marked Eala's 10th career win against a top 10 opponent. The statistic places her among the sport's elite. Since 1990, only Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova, and Monica Seles had recorded more victories in their first 13 matches against top 10 opponents. Eala now stands at 10-4, a record that rivals the greatest players in tennis history. I'm playing the best tennis of my life right now, Eala said after the match. The confidence comes from knowing that I've beaten these players before. I know I can compete with anyone. The victory also extended Eala's winning streak to 8 matches, a run that had begun with her historic DC Open title just 2 weeks earlier. She had now won 8 of her last 9 matches, with her only loss coming in a grueling 4th-round battle against Belinda Bencic in Toronto. The numbers don't lie, and neither does the moment. Alex Eala had just beaten another top 10 opponent, and the tennis world was taking notice. 6-3, 6-2 victory over Amanda Anisimova wasn't just another win. It was a statistical statement that placed Alex Eala among the greatest players in tennis history. And the numbers are staggering. The victory marked Eala's 10th career win against a top 10 opponent. Since 1990, only Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova, and Monica Seles had recorded more victories in their first 13 matches against top 10 opponents. Eala now stands at 10-4, a record that rivals the greatest players in tennis history. The consistency of Eala's dominance is even more impressive. 7 of those 10 victories have come in 2026 alone. She has defeated world number 2, Elena Rybakina, world number 3, Iga Swiatek, world number 3, Jessica Pegula, world number 4, Coco Gauff, world number 5, Madison Keys, world number 8, Jasmine Polini, and world no. 8, Elina Svitolina, twice. The names on her resume read like a who's who of women's tennis. The victory over Anisimova extended Eala's winning streak to 8 matches. The run had begun with her historic DC Open title just 2 weeks earlier. She had now won 8 of her last 9 matches, with her only loss coming in a grueling 4th-round battle against Belinda Bencic in Toronto. The streak included victories over 5 top 10 opponents. But it was the manner of the victory that truly impressed. Anisimova had been warned about the Eala effect. She knew the flags would be out. She knew the chants would be deafening. But nothing could have prepared the world, no. 10 for the storm that awaited her in Cincinnati. Eala's clean ball striking, relentless consistency, and ability to dictate play from the baseline left the American with no answers. The victory marked Eala's first ever meeting with Anisimova. The 24-year-old American had reached a career-high world no. 3 earlier in the year and had been a quarterfinalist at the Australian Open this season. At 17, she had become the youngest French Open semi-finalist in 2019. But against Eala, she found herself facing a player who had already beaten 7 top 10 opponents this season and was playing the best tennis of her career. For Eala, the numbers are a validation of everything she has worked for. "I'm playing the best tennis of my life right now," she said after the match. "The confidence comes from knowing that I've beaten these players before. I know I can compete with anyone, the numbers don't lie. And neither does the moment." Alex Eala had just beaten another top 10 opponent, and the tennis world was taking notice. Her 10 career wins against top 10 players have placed her among the sport's elite, a statistic that rivals the greatest players in tennis history. And she's just getting started. The world number 10 had been warned. She knew the flags would be out. She knew the chants would be deafening. But nothing could have prepared Amanda Anisimova for what she walked into at the Lindner Family Tennis Center. And for the American, the reality was even more overwhelming than she had imagined. Anisimova had spoken before the match about her readiness to embrace the atmosphere. "I love a packed stadium and I love a good atmosphere," she said. "I'm sure it will be a great match, even though they will probably going to be rooting more for her end. But I don't mind it, and I'll try to thrive off of the energy." She had described Eala's fan base as great and the atmosphere as incredible. But the reality of the Eala effect was something even the world number 10 couldn't fully anticipate. The stadium was packed with Philippine flags, turning the Cincinnati Open into a sea of red, white, and blue. The chants of "Laban, Alex" echoed through the stands, the same energy that had transformed Sobeys Stadium in Toronto into Little Manila. The Filipino fans hadn't just shown up. They had traveled from across the country to be there. One group had planned a college reunion around the match. Another supporter had driven 8 hours from Toronto after watching Eala there, just to see her again. For Eala, the support was overwhelming. "It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and enjoying tennis," she said ahead of the tournament. "Hopefully it will help grow the sport as well and, in the end, give them something new and joyful experience." She had called the atmosphere in Toronto Barangay Toronto, borrowing from the passionate, community-driven atmosphere of Philippine basketball. The contrast between the players' experiences was stark. Anisimova, an American playing on home soil, found herself walking into a stadium where the crowd was overwhelmingly against her. The same experience had been described by 4-time Grand Slam winner Naomi Osaka as more like a basketball game than a tennis match. The crowd's energy wasn't just loud, it was transformative. It turned a tennis tournament into a cultural celebration. For the Filipino fans, the moment was about more than just tennis. Ohio is home to nearly 17,000 Filipino Americans, and Cincinnati's Filipino population numbers between 100 and 2,000. But the community had proven that distance was no obstacle. They came to celebrate their culture, their pride, and the woman who had become a symbol of hope for a nation of over 127 million people. The Eala effect had turned another tournament into a homecoming. The flags, the chants, the energy, it was all part of the phenomenon that had begun in Washington, exploded into Toronto, and now arrived in Cincinnati. And as Eala prepared to face Anisimova, the stadium was ready to... The victory over Anisimova was complete. The 6-3, 6-2 scoreline had sent a message to the entire WTA Tour. But as Alex Eala walked off the court at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, she knew the Cincinnati Open was only just beginning. And the names waiting for her in the next rounds read like a who's who of women's tennis. Standing between Eala and a spot in the quarterfinals is a familiar obstacle, one that has haunted her path before. Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova, the Czech world No. 6, looms as a potential fourth-round opponent. The same Noskova who has beaten Eala twice this season, including a 6-2, 6-4 defeat in the Berlin Open semifinals and a 6-2, 6-0 rout at Indian Wells. The Czech star has been a persistent obstacle in Eala's path, and a third meeting would be the ultimate test of how much the Filipina has grown since those defeats. The road only gets steeper from there. A quarterfinal berth would likely pit Eala against world number 3 Jessica Pegula, the American she defeated in the Washington Open final just weeks ago. That victory was the crowning achievement of Eala's breakout summer. But Pegula will be hungry for revenge on a different surface, and with a Grand Slam just around the corner. The semifinals could feature Iga Swiatek or Elena Rybakina, two players who have dominated the WTA Tour for years. Yet the numbers suggest Eala has nothing to fear. She now owns a 10-4 record against top 10 opponents, placing her among the sport's elite. She has already beaten 6 of the world's top 10 players this season. The names on her resume no longer intimidate her. She has proven she can compete with and beat anyone. Greg Rusedski, the 1997 U.S. Open finalist who has been watching Eala's rise closely, has already weighed in. Why should she care whether she's playing an Anisimova, whoever's in the section? Rusedski said on his podcast. Look at the people she beat to win Washington. It was world-class players from start to finish. The Cincinnati Open represents the final major test before the U.S. Open. Eala has already won 8 of her last 9 matches, with her only loss coming in Toronto against Olympic gold medalist Belinda Bencic. She is playing the best tennis of her life, and the confidence she has built over the past 3 weeks is carrying her through the toughest matches. What would you do if you had already beaten the world's best, and the only thing standing in your way was more of the same? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would keep fighting, keep believing, and keep proving that the girl with ruffled socks and light-up shoes was destined for greatness. Because she knew that the loaded draw in Cincinnati was not a threat. It was an opportunity, and she was ready to seize it.